Hi, I'm Tim Dorian. I'm going to go through some of my secondary slides as this was the focus, if you will, of my practicum. Last year, I was lucky enough to be the athletic director at my high school, and it really worked out well for me, first and foremost, because it allowed me to get a lot of experience for my practicum and everything. But I also got to be kind of in this hybrid role where I could work and kind of very much lean on the principal and assistant principals around me to kind of figure out the position before it kind of swallowed me whole, if you will. So one of the first things that I was lucky enough to do was kind of be on the building leadership team, just kind of by nature of being the athletic director. And one of the first things we did was work through the building mission and vision statement. This was really different for me because I got to kind of peek behind the curtain a little bit and work directly with my principal to kind of see his leadership style firsthand, maybe. And what this showed me was that he was very much a I don't want to say a hands off type of leader, but he definitely valued giving over ownership to the rest of the staff. Maybe not necessarily to the rest of the staff, but at least to the rest of the leadership team. It truly was a team effort, a group effort. He would kind of start off, or at least for this meeting, he started off. He said, hey, here's like the big ideas that I want to hit. What do you guys think? And really kind of turned everybody loose, which was it was a little difficult for me, quite honestly, at first because I didn't know where I completely fit in with the rest of the staff at the leadership meeting at least, and towards the end of it, it was really impressive to see how we all kind of found our niche and found our groove to be able to work together kind of towards that common goal of obviously creating this mission vision statement. Um, I believe it was a little bit rushed. It was kind of one of those things that it was something I think that got pushed down from district that we were going to go in and rewrite this. Um, and it felt to an extent like we were just kind of checking a box that obviously we're putting in effort and things like that. But definitely there was a bit of apathy maybe towards the end goal, that it just didn't. When I walked out of the meeting room, it didn't feel like I had accomplished anything, big that day. It felt like I just kind of sat in another meeting, unfortunately. But I was able, like I said, to kind of take away the different leadership style, because for me personally, that's something that I know that I struggle with is giving up that control. Because for me, I wanted to know the different way all the pieces fit together. I want to know, where's everybody supposed to be at this time? How are these things supposed to go? To where just kind of turning that over is relatively difficult for me, at least at this stage in my career. Next, we had the fall coaches meeting. This was the first activity that I was kind of turned loose on. Some of it was just kind of, obviously due to the fact that I was the athletic director, but also that it was just by necessity almost. Now, with being the athletic director, I was lucky enough that our previous athletic director was still around. He was still in the building. They just kind of sliced off that bit of his role and gave it to me from last year. So I while I was the one in name, I definitely kind of worked under his tutelage there a little bit. So I definitely ran my agenda by him probably 5 different times. I said, what am I missing? What am I forgetting? What else needs to be added? And he probably told me 4 of those 5 times, hey, you're gonna be fine. It'll be good. That was Mr. Dorr though. Everything was always going to be okay with that guy. So with this, I'd intended on this meeting being 30 minutes, get everybody in, get everybody out, send them on to practice. Unfortunately, I had it on a day that we didn't have practice. So as I go through my agenda over here on the right, I went through, got everything, got all my information out there, told them all the important dates and all that kind of stuff. And then I said, hey, anything I can do for you guys? Uh, and then there was a flurry of questions like I have never been bombarded with in all my life. Everything from, are we going to have pregame meals? Who's going to pay for them? When are the buses coming? What's the schedule look like? Just it was a lot of things that I hadn't been prepared for. And I learned very quickly how to say, I don't know, but I will find out and I will get back to you. That was probably the biggest takeaway that I was able to get from this meeting. And then quickly thereafter, I learned that when you say that, you need to do it and you need to follow through with it. That was, as I debriefed with the coaches later on in the season and later on in the year, one of the things that I feel very proud about is that the common sentiment was always that I was open to listen to them. I was always accessible, and I always responded. I always followed up because that was a big part of my goal, kind of going in through the year, just for myself, was to make sure that I was able to communicate well with the coaches and with the rest of the staff, just because I have always felt like that is a very important piece to having any kind of success within a school of any level, is that piece of communication. You can't push forward unless everybody knows what the plan is. Evaluating school culture. Excuse me. I worked with our athletic director at Sumner High School. Well, I guess it's Sumner Academy. Excuse me. And me and him, we worked together on this, emailing back and forth, a couple phone calls, a couple in-person meetings where we were going through and just kind of identifying different aspirations, I guess you could say, that we have for our programs, and kind of how to measure progress towards those goals, as well as ways that we could kind of break down our student athlete population to hopefully disseminate groups that maybe feel included, versus those that do not. So there's a couple of pictures of our survey there. It was something that we gave out the Wednesday following the season. So typically the season's going to end on a Friday, Thursday or Friday, and then that following Wednesday we would bring all the kids in with the coaches as well, and throw it up on the screen in the auditorium and throw the link up there and have the kids all put it in their phone. Everybody filled it out. Took, 10 minutes, 15 minutes at the most for that to happen. Now, the other side of that was that they're high school kids and they're, perennially late. That's about the only thing you can count on, is that they're going to be late. But also we had kids that we have a very large ESL population, so there were some of them that we had to walk through it that didn't quite understand what the question was asking. So that was really interesting that even the survey itself, it was kind of like taking a step back into my education practicum, excuse me, to make sure that my survey is kind of in line and is quite literally accessible to those that I'm trying to give it to. But the end goal of these surveys was to take that information, and then obviously this was our first year doing it. So next year we would give it as a preseason survey. So then we would have a preseason and a postseason, and we will kind of continue that cycle for each of the individual seasons, whether it's fall, winter, or spring, to hopefully gauge and hopefully see progress in the student experience that we were able to offer to our student athletes. CAP score review. I was working with Dr. Taylor on this. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. He's at a school in Lawrence now. He's at a middle school over there. But me and him, he was in charge of running our CAP testing. And we worked together. We pulled the scores, and basically what we tried to do is find different incongruencies, amongst the data. How are we performing versus the average? Where were our major deficiencies at? And like I mentioned previously, we have a large ESL population, so clearly language was going to be something that we were struggling in. And so we went through, and obviously we went through and we highlighted different things of or different areas that were our major concerns. I think we picked out 5 from each one, and then we took that information and within the building we had 3 ICs, instructional coaches that we went over, and we would work with them and kind of went through what strategies would you guys suggest for hitting this target or that target or whatever. Um, so that was interesting to me to see um, a principal kind of taking on that role of that instructional leader. Um, because that's not something that, at least in my building, that teachers see very often, because we do have those instructional coaches. That it was nice, quite honestly. It was nice to see a principal to take that on and to do that and to really care and evaluate academics. CASES certs, CASES certifications. This was a thorn in my side for most of the school year, or at least most of the beginning of the school year. Working with adults is almost more difficult than working with students. I was having to light fires under all kinds of my coaches, really just my soccer coach who drives me crazy, to make sure that he was getting his business taken care of, so that he would be eligible to coach. Um, we had issues in making sure he had his rules test done, making sure that he had his heat and concussion records done, making sure that he had his CPR case started requiring that coaches had CPR and AED training, making sure that he was going in and doing that. It was really quite the ordeal at the beginning of the year to ensure that all those requirements were met, so that we were in compliance essentially with the state. Hey, girls basketball coach. So this was the first guy that I was able to hire. I did it probably 7 days maybe after I initially got the job. I think I got hired or officially took over on June 6th, 10th maybe, somewhere in there. So couple weeks later, I guess. But it was different because we had 2 prior assistant coaches that were trying to get the head job, and obviously other applicants. We ended up going with a coach or an applicant that was not in the building prior, and I couldn't be happier. He's somebody that I keep in very close contact with, somebody that I believe has done nothing but absolutely fantastic things for our girls program. He's very passionate. He cares about the student athletes, and it really gave me, I guess, a lot more confidence moving forward to see his success. Because by seeing him succeed as a good choice, as a good coach, it confirmed, I guess you could say, my choice in giving him that opportunity. So that was probably one of the, I guess you could say, kind of the formative experiences of mine, was being given the opportunity to go through, evaluate applicants, and essentially choose. I did have the input of our head principal. We worked kind of on it together, but that was really something that a very positive experience for me as a leader. Our final one here: coaching evals, coaching evaluation meetings. Prior to this past year, we did not have any way of evaluating our athletic coaches. It was always just kind of good enough to get along and make sure you finish the season. Unfortunately, that's not good for our kids. It's not good. It's not, for me personally, it's not good enough that we allow that. So I went through probably 4 or 5 different types of forms that I could fill out to give as coaching evaluations. I think it's very important that people know where they stand and what they can improve on, because otherwise we become stagnant. So after I'd fill these out, the coaches themselves would fill one out. We would get together and discuss kind of, what'd you have on question 1? What'd you have on question 2, 3, 4, whatever. And we'd kind of compare answers on that. If we were one number off either way, it was kind of a thing where we'd let it slide. But if one of them's getting marked as a 5 and one of them's marking it at a 1, we're definitely going to have a conversation about that. Okay, so that kind of wraps up my presentation. thank you guys very much for listening to it. I apologize for taking up the maximum amount of time here, and I can't wait to see you guys in a couple days.